You mentioned St. Francis de Sales earlier. He holds it as definitive that Joseph was assumed into heaven too, body and soul. Now, there's a lot of Catholics who'd be like, well, no, that's not in the actual document of ex cathedra. I don't have to believe it because it's not ex cathedra. He's right. You don't have to believe it.
Right.
But we have to look at why a doctor of the church would say that. One, he points to Genesis chapter 50, that Joseph asks for a promise that his sons, this is the Old Testament Joseph, will not be taken, will actually bring his bones up to Jerusalem and not let his bones rot in Egypt. So there was a long tradition of believing that's one reason why. And as an Australian priest said to me, not even a traditionalist, he goes, yeah, do you really think that God had let his own foster father rot in the earth?
Yeah.
God's not going to let his own dad, like you said, maggots and worms. That's not going to happen to Joseph. No. And then a third, it's a very, very small piece of evidence, but we've never seen a first-class relic of Joseph.
No, they don't exist.
So this isn't a podcast on the Assumption of Joseph, but the point is that the ex cathedra statements on the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption are minimal beliefs, not maximal beliefs. They're awesome documents. I don't mean they're minimal documents. Correct. They're awesome documents, but they're rubber stamping what all the early Christians would have believed in through apostolic tradition.
Yeah. Now, some people, Father, heard you talking about the Assumption of Joseph, and you blew their mind open. I believe in it.
It blew my mind a few years ago.
Yeah, I believe. I want to read the quote, Francis de Sales, just so people don't think that Father Nix has lost it or Taylor Marshall has lost it. So here's the quote. This is St. Francis de Sales, doctor of the church, saint. He says this, quote, surely when our Lord went down into limbo, St. Joseph addressed him in this wise, be pleased to remember, Lord, that when you came down from heaven to earth, I received you into my house and family, that I took you into my arms from that moment you were born. Now you are going back to heaven. Take me with you, body and soul. I received you into my family. Receive me into yours. I took you in my arms. Take me into yours. I looked after you and fed you and guided you during your life on earth. Stretch forth your hand and lead me into life everlasting.
Beautiful. Wow.
Wow. And then others have speculated in Matthew 27 when it says that the tombs of the righteous were split open and bodies came out, that Joseph was one of those. Okay.
Then that's a complex issue right there. That was actually a theological debate because, we talk about the first fruits of the resurrection. Were they actually also then taken up into heaven? The problem if you say yes to that is then Mary wasn't the first to go up to heaven. But then the problem if you say no is then Jesus is like, okay, thanks for coming up for a couple of days. Now you got to go back down, right? So what's your take on that?
So on the Matthew 27, I think that these people were the patriarchs who had apparitions, bodily apparitions, but then went back.
But they came out body out of the ground, right?
Yes, they came out body out of the ground, but then it was redeposited, except for the case of maybe Joseph.
You know what Catherine Emmerich says they did in that time?
Yeah, I've read it. It's the same thing I said, right?
She said they went around pointing at the Pharisees and accusing them of killing the Christ.
Right.
Yeah, pretty intense.
The apostles and the prophets. But I think she also says they returned to their tombs.
Okay, I believe that.
Not that I put all my bank on Emmerich. There's a lot of things I disagree with her on. For example, she says the Assumption happened in Ephesus.
And you and I believe it was in Jerusalem.
Everybody believes it's in Jerusalem except for Emmerich.